Started. So I will quickly just introduce myself. Actually, matter of fact, mm, I'm gonna play a quick introduction to who is the OFC or what is the OFC, and then I will get this party started officially. This is our community ad, and this is our business ad. Let's go to community. Oops.
Welcome to the One Full Circle Community, OFC. We're a vibrant community, rich in heritage and unity, where families grow together. OFC is a haven for families, offering mental health support, financial guidance, and enriching events to connect with like-minded families. Join us and unlock the full potential of your family in a supportive, empowering environment. At OFC, your family's journey to wellness and connection awaits. One Full Circle Community, where families thrive, connect, and excel. Join us today.
Collaboration is key for team success.
All right. So I am always grateful to life, God, our creator, as well as our ancestors for always creating this opportunity for us to be able to get together as a community, to empower each other, to educate, to learn together, and to support each other in our growth. So welcome everybody. I am Pharaoh Hamid Freeman. I am the founder and the director of the One Full Circle community. So for those who just saw that little clip, just to let you guys know briefly, the One Full Circle community, also known as the OFC. We are a community resource. Our goal is to bridge together with like-minded people. We bring together individuals, families, business owners, as well as organizations. Everybody who's dedicated to working together in order to empower our future generation economically, socially, emotionally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why we come together. We have been around for about 14 years now. I'm really glad to be able to create these kind of spaces for us to be able to get together. This is what we call finance season within the OFC. The OFC, we have 4 seasons a year. From April to June, it is finance season. From July, August, September, it's all about building relationships. October, November, December, it's all about health for us. And then beginning of the year is where we acknowledge the members of the community for the awesome things that they're doing. And I'm really excited. This is a workshop that is way long overdue. We are discussing afterlife, we're discussing planning, and why is it important to think about throughout the finance season of the OFC is because if we do not plan, it costs us a lot. And we're going to hear about it. We're going to talk about it in length and depth. But I think there are one thing that we could guarantee. I feel everybody on this call is going to transcend at some time in this life experience. And why not have the discussion openly? Why not break those barriers that are somewhat taboo amongst people within the community and start to talk about it now so that we could be ahead of the just be ahead period, like my parents always said, or my mom and my grandmother, I should say. Prevention is always better than cure. And if we know ahead of time some of the awesome things we can put together in order to ensure that our passing goes along smooth and our loved ones aren't left holding the bag, so to speak, it is important that we connect with sisters like our Queen Andrea Cox, who is here to bless us. She is the author of Final Departure. See if you guys can see my copy here with my screen on. You guys can. I would have to take off my screensaver, which I'm not. There we go. Final Departure. I hope you all have your copy with you today. And if you don't, we'll have other opportunities for us to be able to deep dive. I've been haggling Andrea about us creating a book club all around this amazing book. So maybe we'll be able to make that happen one day. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce our Queen, Andrea Cox. Thank you again for being present with us. And thank you for the workshop and the time you're going to give us today.
No worries. Good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. Oh my goodness. First of all, I want to applaud everybody who's on call with us. There's so much more things you guys could be doing this Sunday evening, but you've decided to come and join us on this very important conversation. I promise I won't make it boring. I promise we'll try to make it as fun as possible because we don't like talking about this, right? Let's be real. So let's see. How many of us could not sleep last night because we were so excited to be a part of this conversation? Can I see show of hands? Anybody?
Yes, me for sure.
It's a disrespect. You guys, I need to applaud OFC. We had a conversation. I had a conversation with Pharaoh I want to say about 2 weeks ago, and it went fast. Like, I mean, it went from us deciding on me being the guest in the morning meeting to doing a radio interview to having this workshop. And Pharaoh, I don't want to really talk your business. I really don't, but I just want to just mention that, Pharaoh and his family went through a shock because he lost an auntie last year. Was it last year? And it was sudden, guys. And I'm at the point that I'm thinking that the more that people actually go through it and they've been through it, they more want to help others. And I believe this is why Pharaoh right away got on board. And I just want to thank you for that. So you guys, let's get, as Pharaoh said, let's get this party started. So can I share my screen, Pharaoh?
Yes, you can.
Okay, awesome. I don't see how I can. Okay, awesome. Okay. So leaving a lasting legacy, and it's the ultimate guide to having an exit plan. Okay, so we get to decide what our legacy is going to look like. So for those who don't know me, my name is Andrea Cox. I am the author, as Farrell said, the author of Final Departure. It is a step-by-step guide and it is a workbook. And as I was telling Farrell the other day, I said, you know what, my community is so amazing because so many of them have supported me and they have bought the book. But, my question is, how many of us have actually read the book and have been doing the actual work, right? So we're going to go through the book and, please write down your questions. We're going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. Some questions came in throughout the week that we'll go through also. And if there's any questions that I personally cannot answer, I will definitely get back to those who have these questions. There's so many questions and so many things with end of life. It breaks my heart when I get the call that a loved one has passed away and there's nothing in place because there's just so much to it. So we're going to dive in as best as we can over the next, I'm going to try not to talk too much because I'm really hoping that we can get a few people to talk their story. I find that stories work more. The goal is just to kind of tickle our brains so that we could start having a plan. Is that cool, everybody? All right, let's get started. So, it's funny because for those, a little bit of background on me, guys. So my background is actually in HR. So I did HR for years and I got laid off and I got introduced into the insurance industry. Oh my gosh, I'm sure it's about 8-10 years ago. It's been a minute. And I was working with a unionized company and I would go out to union members' homes and explain to them their benefits of permanent benefits. And I met with this one Nigerian guy and we had such a great conversation. He told me straight, well, Andrea, I don't need a funeral plan because I'm not going to die. And he was as serious, guys, as a heart attack. Like he was so serious. And when I would go to people's homes, I'd always explain to them ask them questions like, do you have a will? All these questions. And back then I didn't have a will myself. And everyone said no. And I was so used to people telling me that. And I went to this one couple's home, young couple, Caucasian couple, and I asked a question, do you guys have a will? And they told me, yes, we do. And I was shocked because I never heard people say that they have a will. And I was like, why do you have a will? And, what they told me was that they have a close family friend who actually passed away from domestic violence. And when they went to the funeral service, the kids were there with social services. And that dawned to them that they need to have their wills and stuff in place. And as I mentioned earlier, it just seems that we have to go through things to obviously realize things, but our goal is that we're going to be more proactive. Our community is very reactive, right? But we want to start to change that. We want to be more proactive. So that is why I pretty much do what I do. So my passion is educating people on the importance of having an exit plan before something happens. We do this through our coaching. We do this through having workshops. We are currently building a workshop with the book that we'll explain later. And we're going to go through pretty much 6 steps as to what we'll be doing this evening. So we're going to go through the 6 steps, which is one is having those conversations. We'll go briefly through that. The importance of having a will, having those living documents, the importance of insurance, researching and having a funeral home and doing your prepaid funeral packages early, continuing through the workbook, and obviously living life to the fullest, pretty much. So let's talk a little bit about some stats. They say 2/3 of funerals are planned and paid for by women. That is because wives usually outlive the husbands. I'm going to say this again. The stats has it that wives usually outlive the husbands. And I say this all the time that I would do these workshops. It's always the females that come out. It's interesting. The husbands don't come. And then when they go home to go talk to their spouse, like, you know what, and they're going on telling them, different things. And the husband's like, it's okay. Don't need that. We're good. And what I'm here to say, we all need it. And you know what? When we look at the stats, for those of us who are on social media, I don't even know if there's a week that goes by that we're not actually telling somebody our condolences, because everyone's on social media now talking about their loved one who's passed away. So unfortunately, when it comes to this topic, there is no way out. It's one of those guarantees like taxes. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And I rather to have this conversation. We can laugh, we can cry, whatever we got to do before there is a crisis. Adult female children are also the ones most likely to act as caretakers for their aging parents. So the task of carrying through parents' final wishes are on them. I talk a lot with adult children with aging parents. For some of us, our parents are very secretive. They don't want to talk about it. And it's really none of our business, so they say, right? Until something happens, we're in reactive mode. We realize so much stuff. So it's just to try to figure out a way to have these conversations so that they feel comfortable, so they could start letting you in. Because when a loved one passes away as crisis mode, we are so busy with work, we're so busy with children, we're so busy with life. And then this comes in and it literally throws you for a huge curveball, right? So 60% of Canadians do not have a will. Now, let's change that a bit, and we're going to say 60% of Canadians don't have a will, or they don't have an updated will. So it's important that we update our will. So in the book, it talks about different times to update your will. There's so much stuff I don't want to talk, so I just want to make this as brief as possible, Okay. So we are going to first talk on step number 1, having those conversations with our families. Now, let me ask the question here. How many of us, show of hands, have had that uncomfortable conversation with our loved ones in regards to anything with end of life planning? Anything. Show of hands. And I feel like I need to stop the share to see how many hands are going up. Can you see the hands, Farrell? Can you count them for me?
Right now I see 2 and 1 is mine. So
And there's how many of us on this call?
right now we're at 20 participants in total.
Okay. So that's typical, right? We don't want to have these conversations. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few of these. What are these conversations that we need to be had before something happens? Let's start with number 1, senior care options. How many of us here are adult children with aging parents? My hand is going to go up here. It is so huge. It is so huge, guys, that we have these conversations with our aging parents, not just for end of life, but also when it comes to aging. Aging is another stage of life where I don't think we talk enough about. And then we end up putting our seniors in homes, our parents in homes. We end up not really paying attention to the changes that they're going through until there is a crisis mode. and then we are now reactive and they have to move out of their house, and there's a lot of resentment, right? So we need to start having these conversations on how we even keep our aging parents home as long as they possibly can so they don't have to move. So there's steps for that. Once again, it is in the book. I don't want to go into too much detail, you guys, but of course we're going to talk about the book, and the book is so important because there's so much information in there. DNR, do not resuscitate. And pretty much that is a binding legal order signed by a physician at a patient's request not to resuscitate if they stop breathing, or if they go into cardiac arrest, or let's say that if anything, they're going to be brain dead. So it's important that we have these conversations whether or not we want to be resuscitated. When we don't have this on paper, when we don't have these conversations, there are some of our family members that's going to fight to the end to make sure that you are kept alive. But for some of us, we don't want to be kept alive. I'm one of them. I've made it very clear to my family, if anything happens to me, or if I'm going to be brain dead or a burden to the family, please just let me go. Don't bring me back. That's just my take. Everyone is different, right? I have aging parents. I have a sister who has 4 children. Her hands are full, right? And there's times I'll go visit seniors at senior homes, hospitals, and the family's not there, and they're very lonely, and there's so much different conversation. So you know what I mean? We just need to know, if something was to happen to us, what do we want? It shouldn't be our family to make that decision. And if they're going to, they're making it in crisis mode. So it's stuff for us to have these conversations. I see your hand up, Farrell. Is your hand up?
Yeah, it is. Just for, I guess, housekeeping. Should we note all the questions that we have and then we'll do it at the end? Or if we have
Let's
questions
do
when
that.
we're okay, all right.
Yeah,
So just letting everybody know. So if there's things that you say and we have questions about it, we'll just note them and then we'll have questions to answer at the end. Okay. Thank
perfect.
you. Because I already have questions. All right, great. Thanks.
Perfect. Organ donation. There's so many of us who want to donate our organs, and that is great. Just know that that is not guaranteed. Question is, why is that not guaranteed? One, if we pass away not in the hospital, our organs pretty much need a supply of oxygen, right? So it's rich blood to remain suitable for donation. So, so many of us want to donate our organs, keeping in mind that it also depends on the health of our organs. So there's times that we cannot donate. So, it's just to kind of keep that in mind, but also knowing that even if we want our organs donated, it's still not guaranteed, because if our next of kin says no, that's what it's going to end up being. So it's important that we have these conversations so that hopefully whatever our wishes are is what our next of kins will, and then they're going to do what you want, right? But it'll only happen if we have these conversations. Final disposition. Now, let's read this one right here. On this screen, it says, I have 2 last wishes. Number 1, I want my remains to be scattered around Disney World. And number 2, I don't want to be cremated. As we can see, that's pretty much impossible, right? It can't be. How are we going to spread our remains around Disney World if it's not going to be cremated? We'll let that stay there. But the thing about it is that there's times we tell different family members different stuff, hence why there's a lot of confusion when a loved one passes away. We tell this family member this, we tell that family member that, and then this other family member wants something else, right? So having these important conversations, knowing what your final wishes are. Let me ask this next question. How many of us know what we want for our final wishes? How many of us want to be cremated? How many of us want to be buried? Let's see how many hands go up. Once again, I'm going to ask you to have a look at how many hands are going up as to do we actually know what our final wishes are?
Right now we're still at about 10%, which is 2 people.
Yeah, okay. So it's either that we're being shy, which is totally fine, but just having these conversations as to what it is. Now, to talk a little bit about what our final wishes are, obviously there's going to be burial, right? Which
Thank you.
is where what's that story, Farrell?
Oh no, I just said we got another hand. So
Oh, we got another
sorry.
hand. Okay. Okay.
So
So
we
our
can,
percentage like what? Are we at 15, 20? Or are we still a little bit low?
yeah, we're still low. We're still low. Let's
So
say
low. Okay.
let's call it 12%.
Okay. So When it comes to our final wishes, there is burial and there is cremation. And it's interesting. First of all, for burial, that just means that, traditional funeral, casket, viewing, and then a burial at a cemetery, right? And then there's cremation, which is pretty much, there's three different options for cremation, guys. There's going to be cremation, which is going to be, and Shayata, is that her name? Is her hand up for a question now, or her hand was up from saying what she wants?
A good question. It came up after. Okay,
It came up
I
after.
think it was a vote. Yes, good. So we're
Okay.
about 5 voting.
So
Yes. Okay.
if you can just write down your questions, please, that would be awesome, because we're going to start to getting into so many questions that we're going to be ending up not finishing up here. I need to pay attention to the time. So when it comes to cremation, there's actually three different options. There is direct cremation, which means that our loved one passes away, goes into the care of the funeral home, and they're going to cremate, and your loved one comes and pick up the ashes. Okay, that's number one. Number two is going to be like a cremation with a memorial service, which is going to be like whether it's an urn at the church, at the funeral home, whatever case may be, there's an option there. And the last one is going to be traditional service, where you do pretty much like an actual traditional viewing, rental of a casket, and then a cremation after. Okay, so that is an option. So this is where lots of families get into to the confusion, because mom said that, she wants to be cremated. You go to the funeral home and there's all these options. But for those of us who want cremation, let's have these conversations with our loved ones as to what to do with our cremated remains, because some of our family members don't want no part of it, right? So let's have these conversations, because we still might need to get a plot at the cemetery for our cremated remains to be buried there. Okay, so let's once again have these important conversations. Where to find important documents. When a loved one passes away, the first question that is asked at the funeral home is going to be, is there a will in place? And they want to know this because they want to know who is going to be making these decisions, which is why it's important to have a legal document in place. So we'll talk about legal documents shortly here. But even when it comes to insurance policies, where are the insurance policies in the home? Like I would tell people, if you can't find paperwork, try to find a bank statement. The only problem now is that the bank statements are not so easy to find because so many of us are online, right? But before, we would tell people to go check the bank statements and check what money is coming out, and you could see which insurance company has money coming out if you don't know if there is a policy. But once again, guys, these conversations are so, so, so important. Last but not least, what to do with our stuff. We have so much stuff. For those of us who do not know, there is an estate sales company that can come into the home. They can price stuff, they can sell stuff for you, and they don't even have to take the pay. They will actually take the money out of the sales. The research is there, guys. There's things we can do so that things are done in advance, because there's so many times that, say, for instance, your parent is in Alberta, all the kids are in BC, and next they have to come to Alberta. They're not going to BC with all that stuff, right? So then a lot of our stuff end up in the garbage, right? So it's just important that we talk about that stuff, have a plan for that. In the book, there's actually blank pages as to, or spots as to what to do with your stuff. All right. So when we look at step one, for those who have the books, all of the steps we've discussed is in chapters 1, 3, 8, 2, 4, and there's no worksheets for that chapter or for that step. Okay. Step 2 is getting a will and 2 living wills. For those who missed it earlier, 60% of Canadians do not have a will or an updated will. There is a religion called the Baha'i Faith. And from the age of 16, this community is getting 16-year-olds set up with their wills. I'm not talking 18, I'm talking about 16. This is a proactive community who is working with their children young. So obviously, what a will is it's pretty much our word as to what we want, right? So that is a legal document that is done at a lawyer's office. And let's also keep in mind that when it comes to the wills, I'm not going to talk too much about it, guys, because I'm not a lawyer. But at the end of the day, when it comes to wills, there are some provinces that they'll actually take a holograph will, which is handwritten. Just keeping in mind that if you're doing your own holograph will, there might be stuff that's missing. So I always tell people, talk with a wills and estates lawyer, because they're the ones who are going to the courts fighting for the families to ensure that certain things are done as to what that person wanted. So, we all know lawyers. We all have friends who have friends who have friends, right? And they are not the ones who are experienced or have the expertise. So, speak with a wills and estates lawyer. There's different prices depending on what their experiences is, whether it's a corporation. But just keep in mind that a lot of these lawyers have packages where you can get the next part I'm going to talk about are the 2 living documents. In Alberta, it's an enduring power of attorney and a personal directive. And these are living documents that if we were to lose mental capacity, and I'm talking about whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, we get into our car accident and we cannot make decisions on our own, we are appointing someone to make these decisions on our behalf. These are other very important documents that all adults need. So there's different names for those documents depending on where you live. So, for all of us, if we can get those important documents, they are key. So in step 2 with the wills and getting a will and those 2 living documents, it's chapter 5 in your book. And the worksheets are worksheet 217 on page 217 to 18, pages 218 to 220, 221, 22, 22, and then 223. All right. Step 3 is insurance. Let me ask, how many of us, and you guys can unmute yourself because let's just see if we all say the same answer. How many of us have car insurance?
Yeah,
We're going to see lots of hands going up.
Yes, we have car insurance.
Now, if we get into an accident, who's the first person that we call?
Insurance company.
So we know that if something happens, we're calling the insurance company because we know that they're going to cover, right? Now, let's say we have hail damage on our home. If we have a fire, whatever case may be, who are we calling?
Insurance company again.
Insurance company.
Okay. Now, when a loved one passes away, who do we end up calling to help paying for this bill that comes up all of a sudden?
Everybody, GoFundMe,
GoFundMe.
whatever have you.
Are we seeing something wrong with this picture?
Yes.
It is, right? So it's just interesting because let me ask this question. I'm hoping that someone can be as transparent with us as possible. Can I get a hands of those who have lost a loved one and have been to a funeral home? How many of us have been to an actual funeral home while making those plans? Let's see, there's quite a few hands coming up, which I thank you guys so much. And as we can see with the numbers, based on the names that I'm seeing, I'm going to stop share this actually just for a minute, just so that we can see, I could better see what I'm looking at. Stop share. How do I stop share? Oh, here we go. Okay, so I did see hands. Where did they all go, guys? Okay, Harriet is there. Jessica's there. EJ's there.
It's me too. Sorry, I couldn't put my
Sabina.
hands up. Sorry.
Hi, Sabina. Was I muted all this time, guys?
No.
Okay. 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 So let me ask those who have unfortunately had to go through that journey of going to the funeral home to make funeral arrangements for a loved one. What was the shocker for you guys when you were at the funeral home that you did not know before? Can we hear those people's experiences? What is it that you just didn't know? And it's like, oh my goodness, didn't know this. Harriet,
think
are you
for me-
unmuted?
Yes, I am. For me, it was my father, and
Okay.
he was the first death in the family. I was surprised at how much they're trying to upsell everything, number one,
Mm,
and how I didn't know anything. I said yes to everything because one of the things they said, oh, if your father passes away, we need this, but he's gone. Why do you need to upsell this? So I think if I had had your book, it would have been so much easier. I would have known. I
right.
just need the basics. I don't need to get the gold swimming on my dad's casket. What is that? I don't need
Right.
that. He's gone.
Right.
But a
Right.
lot of, I think what your book covers a lot of things that I didn't know and I wish that I had known.
Thank you so much, Harriet. Anybody else? Is anything else at the funeral home their experience that they didn't know that they got the shock when they got there?
For me, it was just the sheer cost of everything, just how expensive everything is.
Right.
Yeah, that was a shock for me.
The same
Anybody
here as
else?
well. The same here as well. I expected it to be expensive, but I didn't expect it to be that much.
Right. So it sounds like we're pretty consistent with the cost when we go to the funeral home, and what does that even look like? Am I accurate with that for those who don't want to talk, which is totally fine? And this is seriously what ends up happening when a lot of us go to the funeral home. This is when we get the shock of, oh my goodness, who's paying for this bill? Where's this money coming from? Which is where GoFundMe comes in, where now we're talking and calling everybody. This is where there's a lot of, yes, the cost is astronomical. Yeah. This is where we're having these conversations. There's a lot of family breakdowns, guys. I have been to funeral homes with literally arguments. It is horrible because now who is paying this bill? And just keeping in mind that when it comes to insurance, there's a lot of us who have accident policies. And an accident policy only is going to pay out if they die from an accident. So now we're holding grounds on an accident policy that's not going to pay out for natural causes, right? So just to briefly go on the type of insurances that are out there, guys. And there's term insurance, which is pretty much, I call it paycheck protection. I call it paycheck protection because that is there for while we are in our working years, right? So if we pass away, our family will have that money to keep on with their life until, the kids get older or, things like that. So that's term. So it's temporary. So there's a time that actually stops. I'm not going to go into too much details. I know that we have some insurance agents in here, and my goal is that at the end, and before I actually go on, to get a hand of those insurance agents and to see where you guys are, because we need to have these conversations. There's a whole life policy that is there to pay for end of life, to pay for final expenses, which would be the funeral home, things like that. It's interesting because another term insurance policy, guys, is our work insurance. That is term. And a lot of us are so dependent on our work benefits, not realizing that when we are no longer working or we get laid off, that is going to be gone, right? It doesn't stay there. So we need to ensure that we have protection on our own. Term insurance, guys, is based on our age, it's based on our health, it's based on our sex, it's based on, there's different things that's based on, but I'm telling you that the younger you are, the better it is. I am now huge. There's universal life insurance. I don't want to talk too much about this. For those who have universal life insurance, let me leave that. Universal life insurance, I'm just saying for those who have it, make sure that you understand that policy and that you are going to be doing your research on that on a regular basis, because that's one of those things that I'm seeing a lot of seniors that didn't know what they got themselves into. They've been paying that insurance for how many years and they don't have it no more. So as one of the insurance agents told me, when it comes to certain policies, you either want a policy that's going to have a guarantee at the end or a surprise at the end. And the surprise is going to go one way or the other. We're not going to talk about insurance right now, okay? I'm going to leave it at that. I am now huge, guys, on critical illness insurance. Critical illness insurance is an insurance that pays out a lump sum of money if you get diagnosed with, say, a terminal illness. The stats now, up to 3 weeks ago, I'd be telling people that the stats for cancer is 2 in every 5 Canadians. It's now 1 in every 2. I heard it 2 weeks ago. I refused to repeat it until I was able to get confirmation on it. And that is the stats. When a loved one is now diagnosed with a critical illness policy is going to help that income, but we also need to think about that loved one who's going to be home taking care of that person as well. Critical illness is so important, guys. But as I said, we have insurance people here. Get the information, because at the end of the day, if something was to happen and it happens quick, right? The question is, do you have family that you can call to ask them to support you for how many months? One of the best ways is going to be different insurance policies. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Once again, I'll show my number and stuff, you guys. What I've been doing is I've been building up different relationships with different professionals, so that depending on where you live, the goal is that you'll have different professionals to speak with, because obviously I'm not going to talk on everything. But having those insurances are so key. And I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to be just a little bit what's the word I want when I'm talking my own personal story. For those who don't know, I was vulnerable. There we go. Thank you. Is that Auntie Joyce? Thank you, Auntie Joyce. So I was married for quite some time. We were separated for quite some time. And when the ex and I first got insurance, when we had the house, we had a lot of insurance. And then I got laid off, and then we lessened all of our insurance. Okay. Now for years, I've lessened that insurance. Last year or prior to that, I've been feeling a certain kind of way, and I realized the importance that I need to up my insurance. On top of that, I paid his insurance, you guys. We were separated for probably about, I don't know, 6 to 8 years. 6 to 8 years. It was crazy long. And the day that divorce paper came through the house, you guys, I instantly called my insurance provider and I said, you can now take my name off of this policy. Why am I saying this? Because the thing about it is that when we are in a relationship, or if there's children involved, and I didn't have children with him, but he has 2, well, they're now older now, but if something happens to his income, what happens to the children, right? So I made sure that I kept this policy going, because if anything was to happen, I know my name would be the first one to be called. So I had to protect myself and the children at the same time, even though these children were not my children. So what am I saying to us? The importance to have, even when I look at my people that I know who's paying their spouse's insurance policy because they're not paying it, I'm going to tell you guys, pay it, because nowadays we are seeing so many passings. There are so many passings that are not expected. And just know that you are the one that's going to need this finances to pay for all this stuff. So I got into this huge argument the other day, and it wasn't huge because I refused to argue. But I think even as, if we have a boyfriend, somebody serious, we need to start asking, if something was going to happen to you, can you pay for your own, funeral policy, or pay for your own expenses, right? So we just need to have these conversations. So let's continue on with okay, I'm going to go back to sharing. Okay. Next slide. If I could get this thing going here. Okay, so as you can see, insurance is talking about all the different insurances, guys. And one is a prepaid funeral package. I'll explain that later. And the worksheet is going to be on page 215. All right, so as I was mentioning to you earlier, the problem, what really defines an unexpected death. So if we look at the list here, guys, between overdose, don't get me started with this. Oh God. Suicide, accident, complications of medical and surgical care, homicide, cancer, infections of the kidney, major cardiovascular disease, lower respiratory disease, HIV. These are all unexpected deaths. And based on the top 5 risk of factors of death is heart disease, cancer, accidents, Back then was COVID, not anymore. I had that on the list, and strokes. So when it comes to even a loved one, guys, who have cancer, when we get that word from our doctor, see, a lot of us is going to shut down. We don't tell our loved ones. We keep it to ourselves. We're going through that journey on our own. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but the thing about is that is another unexpected death for a lot of us, because we didn't know until now they end up passing away, right? So the importance of us having the conversations with our loved ones on what the plans are, what we're going to do. When you guys read through my book, it actually starts off as like you're going on a plane. Okay, because when we go on a plane, what did they go through before they take off? They're going to go through, what to do if there's an emergency. So this is pretty much how the book is written. Okay, guys. So, this is just so huge, because if we have a loved one that's been diagnosed terminal, a lot of them some of them, they shut down. They don't want to talk about it, because now they're having to deal with that. I'm going to be gone, and they have to now accept this. So they're not going to be talking. They're not going to worry about what the plans is, because to them, it's already too late, right? And then it's more like, what do we say to someone who's dying? Once again, guys, that is in the book. What do we say when someone is dying? So this is why it's just so important that, once again, we have these conversations, okay? And that we understand and that we accept and realize that death, someone could be here today and literally gone tomorrow. We've been seeing it way too much. Okay, to take off this heaviness, we're going to play a game. So I am going to get my timer out. Okay, guys. So this is what we're going to do. The next screen that you're going to see, okay, it has 54 numbers. And what I'm going to have you guys do is I want you to find the 54 numbers in order, and you're going to have 1 minute. So you're going to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, till you find up to number 54. Are we all good? Do we all understand what the plan is? Do we understand what our assignment is? Anybody that's not clear? We all good? Okay. Let me get my timer out. You guys can use your fingers and just point.
Wait. It wasn't clear for one person. So the number, so the numbers are going to show up on the screen scattered, and we have to count in order and go as far as we can.
So you're going to try to find the number in order. As I try to find, and you have 1 minute to find from number 1 to 54, guys. All right. Are we ready? Let me reset this. Okay. Starting now. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How did we do? How many of us got to 54? Show of hands.
I did not pass 4.
Honesty is good for the soul. Thank you. Okay. How many of us got to 44?
I did 12.
I see 12. Okay. How many of us got to 34? I should laugh because this is not even funny. Shauna, I see your 2. I see your 2. Any of us got to 25?
I did. I got to 24.
Did you get to 20? Okay. Any of us got to 14, Someone says that they need glasses. 14? Okay. So I don't know, like what numbers? You guys just type it. I got to 54. Harriet, you got to 54?
What?
Harriet knows how to do it. That's why. That's why, which is good. That's good. Okay, let me look at all the comments. So what's the average, Pharaoh? I
Right
don't like
now,
pressing too much numbers while I'm on this thing.
right? Yeah, I would say it's in the teens. Well, no, not even in the high teens. Like the average is around 10, 11,
Around 10,
12.
11.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually 5, 6. Yeah, so if I have to look at the average, we're talking about 8
8.
average.
Okay. So let me ask you guys. You could either type it or unmute yourself. How did that make you feel finding numbers 1 to 54?
It was kind of a bit frustrating because I was like, where's
Frustrating?
17? Damn it.
Who else wants to say how did they feel?
I would say I feel old now.
You feel old. So you think it's an old thing. Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I felt a little
Yes,
old because I'm on my phone now because my computer crashed before. So, but I couldn't see, so I had to like put the video off and like try and look and yeah, then it was time. So that's why I only got the 2.
I saw one comment come up with annoyed. Someone said annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it's more of like disorganized because when I first started, I thought like the small number would be a difficult one, but even the one that's with a bigger one, it's kind of difficult to get them because like I was just over the place, like looking for the number.
Right.
Well, you know, I just reached number 4, so you know I'm hopeless.
This is not even, I shouldn't even laugh. Okay. Unorganized and difficult. Okay. Now let me go back to sharing. Thank you guys for your honesty with that. Now there's actually a method to this madness. Okay, guys. So I'm going to show you how this is going to work. Let me see if I can get to the next slide. Okay. So these are the directions. You see how there's 9 boxes? Can you guys see my mouse? You see that there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Can you guys see my mouse? There's 4. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
There's 5, there's 6, 7, 8, 9, back up to 10, 11, 12. So you're going in the order of the box. Did you guys see that?
Yes.
So now we're going to try this again. Okay, we're going to try this again. I'm going to get my timer ready. Always look for the pattern. We are going to try this again. I'm going to get my timer going again. And we're going to see how many of us got to 54. All right. You guys ready? Sorry. All right, starting now.
Done.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do we do? How many of us got to 54? I see a done.
Well, I get to 18. Thank the Lord. From 4 to 18, that's improvement.
It is. So how many of us got done? I see it. How many dones do we have in the comments there?
A lot. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you guys, how did that make you feel?
Oh, that was just more fun. It was just,
Yeah, and it's very clear that even no matter how it's disorganized or not arranged properly, if there's instruction, then it's easy to navigate.
Right, right. Anybody else? Easy after clarification. Yeah. Anybody else? Like a champ. Marsha, you handled it like a champ, eh? Anybody else? Organized and confident.
Here is a hand up, Jessica.
Yeah, the second time I did it, I did it much faster and with confidence.
Ooh. Right. Awesome. So what we know for sure is that we did better than the first time. Is that correct? All right, let me go back to the screen. All right. So overall, guys, the more planning you do, which means that we have an exit plan, the better it is going to be for our loved ones. So when we look at the first time when we had no clue what to do, when a loved one passes away, there's no conversation of final wishes, there's no insurance or finances in place, there's no will, there's no funeral home, cemetery arrangement set up. It's now like when I tell you chaos, confusion, immense stress, family breakdown, financial hardship, that's just the beginning, right? So now it's going to be a memorial to a tragedy, as opposed to we have now left directions for our loved ones. We've had the conversation. It takes away that confusion. It takes away the chaos. The finances are taken care of. There's less or no family disputes. It's more therapeutic. You guys, oh my goodness, my mom did everything, right? Like now people are talking about the peace that they had because their loved one did everything for them. If it's not everything, they've done something, right? And that is part of us leaving these lasting legacies so that when our loved ones go through it, I'll tell people that it almost feels like the victim, I shouldn't even use that word, is now the loved ones who are left behind trying to piece everything together, right? Which is why it is so important that we have these conversations and we do have an exit plan in place. Do we all get that? Do we see the difference between the two? That's the whole purpose of that whole game, as fun as it was at the end. Pharaoh. All right, you guys. We are at, I have 2 more minutes and I want to quickly go through this. You guys, step 4, research and choose funeral home and or cemetery in advance. I know that one of the comments that we got, or one of the questions that we got was someone on the line, I don't even know if she's on the line right now, who is a makeup artist. When it comes to choosing a funeral home, a makeup artist who actually wants to help families when a loved one passes away to do their makeup. When it comes to funeral homes, we work at different funeral homes within Alberta and in BC, and typically with family-run funeral homes. And when I think about the funeral home here in Calgary, Pearson's, they do an immaculate job with our people's makeup, and that is so huge. So I know that the lady, what's that girl's name who sent a comment about, and she's a makeup artist. Is she on the line?
Vanessa, yeah, she is.
Vanessa, where do you live?
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, hi, sorry about that. Yes, I live in Ahuntsic. I'm in the east, like northeast of Montreal.
You're in Montreal, okay.
Yeah, in the northeast of Montreal, yeah. So I was super excited for this subject.
Right, no, that's awesome. Yeah. And do you work with a specific funeral home, or do you work at families? Or just tell us, for those who are in Montreal, can you just give us a little bit as to what you do?
Yeah, so actually it's the way that I started off with it a few years ago. So in 2017, my best friend of 24 years passed away. She was ill with cancer, and she wasn't the person who ever wore makeup or anything like that. And the only time she gave me a chance to do her makeup was for her funeral. So
right.
as we were planning everything, while she was in palliative care, she asked me to do her makeup, and I agreed to do it. I was very nervous about it and everything, of course, but I've been doing makeup for quite a number of years at that point. I did a bit of research online and so on, and she was actually the first person. So I did her makeup for her funeral. And fast forward a few years, another friend's mother, who was very close to as well, she asked me to do a makeup. I did it again, but just off the strength. It wasn't for any particular reason. And as of late, my aunt passed away in December, in November. So in December we had the funeral, and I offered to do it. And at that moment, it dawned on me the importance of that service. Because sometimes the like when I think of my grandfather, for example, when he passed away, I didn't recognize him. And even though I was 26 years old, and he lived with us for quite a while, and that was like my grandpa's little girl, it was traumatizing for me. I couldn't even approach the casket or anything.
Right.
So even like my mom thanked me, I don't know how many times they're being the family in December at the funeral for my aunt, because what my mom saw when she went to dress her sister versus what she saw at the funeral itself was completely different. So I feel like we don't think it's a necessary service, but at the end of the day, it really is, because it helps to lessen it makes it the grief less complicated for the survivors, and it also allows the deceased or loved one to pass with grace, with dignity as well. So because I'm a certified makeup artist, so I understand what they call color theory and corrective makeup measures. I've been doing makeup for 10 years now. And so I use those concepts, and I notice when I speak to people, a lot of people have been traumatized. Like I said, my grandfather was like, his color was very unnatural, so it was traumatizing. I have a good friend of mine who when her best friend passed away, she was pretty much orange and stuff. Like, they're not trained, unfortunately. I feel at the funeral homes for the melanated community. That is, everybody else might be okay, but so yeah, I think it's something people don't typically think about, but honestly, um, it can make the grieving process less complicated, really, for the survivors. And like I said, the dignity and grace for your loved one when they pass on. So it's a service that I started offering officially this year, but I've been doing it since 2017. I've done like 3 so far, but I'm opening up more and more to it. I think it is necessary.
Thank you. And that is one of the things that why it's important that we do these research in advance, right? As to which funeral home we're going to use. There's pros and cons to them all. It's huge in regards to what the family's grief experience is going to be like. So thank you so much for bringing that up, because now I don't have to talk about that. When it comes to choosing a funeral home, choosing a cemetery, when it comes to funeral home, guys, there are family-run funeral homes, there are corporate funeral homes, there are different funeral homes, which comes with different costs. Let's keep that in mind. I remember when I first started into this industry, and I would go to different funeral homes just to see what it's all about. And they don't know who I am. And I'm asking them for a cost sheet, and they wouldn't give it to me. And I literally had a headache at this one funeral home because they refused to give it to me. In Ontario, for those who are in Ontario, I know that by law about 2 years ago, every funeral home in Ontario has to have the pricing on their website. Or if you go to the funeral home, they have to give you pricing. It's not in all provinces, but just know that it's just like you buying a car. It's just like it is a business. As Harriet mentioned earlier, when she went to the funeral home to do arrangements with her father, the upselling. And it's depending on which funeral home you go to, it's almost like they make you feel guilty if you don't spend a certain amount of dollars, right? And it almost seems like for some of us, the more greater the grief, the more deeper we go into our pockets, which is why, doing these research in advance, seeing what funeral homes are out there is important. When it comes to even cemeteries here in Alberta, we have private cemeteries, we have public cemeteries. We in Edmonton, we have religion cemeteries, Catholic cemeteries. It's all different pricing, right? So once again, the book explains all of that. When it comes to cemetery plots, you guys, depending on where you go, you can get a plot. For instance, with my parents, they have a plot that holds 2 caskets and 8 urns, up to 8 urns. No, that one holds up to 10 urns. That cemetery, Queen's Park, does not taking any more burials unless you've prearranged. But depending on which cemetery you go to, you can get almost like family plots. Keeping in mind that our younger generation more wants cremation, right? So they don't want burial. So it just kind of depends. But you know what? Think about prearranging getting this stuff done in advance because it saves the family thousands of dollars in the long run. I remember when grandma passed away, not my grandma, but a close family friend who passed away. And when she first bought her plot was almost $500. And by the time that she passed away, it was almost $5,000. If she didn't pre-arrange all those years prior, the family would have been paying that almost $5,000. So doing prepaid funeral packages, which is obviously this is what I do here in Alberta, makes a world of a difference. In fact, to be more specific, and for those who are thinking about prepaid funeral packages, give me a call. Obviously, I'm not hooked. Well, no, I do have a connection in Toronto. Montreal, there's a lot of funeral homes in Montreal. That's a work I need to come out there to go do, but I'm willing to do that. But, I just kind of take it as the need arises. Last July, I worked with a family who had a loved one who was sick. I didn't know, well, I knew who was sick, but I didn't know what from. And he passed away last month. And from when I went to the funeral home with them to do those like arrangements, the family saved almost $1,000 and $1,002. And I'm talking about July to March. Like the daughter literally got up and she gave me a hug because she couldn't believe how much the saving was if they didn't do this in advance. And of course, the goal is that we do this years and years and years in advance, but we are seeing a huge difference in the increase with our suppliers between 5.5 to 29%, guys. But in average, it's been about 11 to 25%. So when you do your pre-arrangements in advance, you're locking in today's dollars, right? There's so many advantages of doing your pre-arrangements. Oh my gosh. I had them all here. Lock in today's dollars, guys. There are various payment options. It is, they actually pay the funeral home within 1 to 2 business days. It's what your wishes are, not your family's, right? And at the end of the day, when you go to the funeral home, there are so many different options that you're able to save your family from spending a lot of those dollars. I'm watching the time, Farrell, and I can see you are as well. I'm going to get through this very quickly.
You read my mind. I'm like, when do I give her the sign?
Right? Okay. That's step 4, you guys. Please do your research in advance and the advantages of prepaid funeral packages and with the cemeteries as well. Because just know that when a loved one passes away, and I want to say something, but if you guys read the book, it's in there. I don't want to say because these can go online. Does this go on YouTube?
This one in particular, no, because this is more of a workshop for OFC members and friends, so we won't broadcast it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you guys in a little secret. Little secret. When a loved one passes away, they're over the age of 18. Now, they would have to be single, or if we have children. And if there's no money in place, there's times that we don't need to all come together to come up with this money, okay? Because there is government funding. It just depends on whether or not there is money or not. Because for you to do an application, they will check accounts, they'll do everything before the government's going to step in. So if you don't have it, don't think that you have to. But a thing about a lot of us go to the funeral home, we're slapping down our credit cards, we're taking that line of credits because mom said that she wants to be repatriated to Africa, to Jamaica. There's no money in place, but we're going to jump in and do that. And we don't realize what we get ourselves into financially till it's too late. That's another discussion. Time is going. Giving you this information. Call me, ask me questions. That is going to help a lot of us as well. Okay, moving on.
I want to put it out there because I know we have 20 minutes and it's such a heavy topic. And I definitely, I don't know if everybody feels like how I do, but I feel so rushed. I feel like, oh my God, there's so many, this is such a vital topic. So I am going to put it out. I'm going to put the, our email in the chat. If there's those who are here and who do want to have a follow-up, because Andrew, I've spoken to you about this, about us creating almost like a book club where we go through chapter by chapter together, where we could fill it out together, go through it. I want to know how many participants are interested in this kind of thing. So I'll put our email in the chat and I'll just need to hear from you guys if you're interested. If we have enough people who are, then we will. But if you guys feel like you got enough from today, that's no problem as well. But we are here at your service and we want to make sure that you guys get your full. All right. So I just want everyone to feel rush. If you feel like you don't want to continue, I'm definitely want to hear from you, and we will make it happen. All right. Thank you, Queen. You go ahead.
Thank you so much for that, Farrell. And that's the thing, you guys. In most cases, when someone talks to me, they're just like, I wish I read your book, because now they realize, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's in my book. You didn't read the book. So that's just something that I hear all the time. So at step 4, the chapters are there, the worksheets are there. Moving on. Step 5, you guys, pretty much it's all about living life to the fullest. Okay, guys, we don't know what tomorrow is gonna hold, right? So living life to the fullest is so huge. For those of us who have, how many of us have a bucket list? I know some people don't like to hear that word, bucket list, bucket list before you kick the bucket. These are the kind of things that we need to put down and start living our best lives, because at the end of the day, you guys, we are seeing it, we are hearing it. We literally talk to somebody today and they are gone tomorrow, right? So there's one thing about death is that there's no immunity. There is none. There's no age restriction. It is hitting us all different ages. I do work at one of the funeral homes. I pick up shifts now and again, and I'm telling you, all ages, all different situations. I'm not here to talk about all that right now, but the importance of us living our best life and leaving a lasting legacy is just so huge. These memories that we can leave for our loved one, because that is what's going to hold them when we're no longer here, whether it's going to be family vacations, whether it's there's just so much that's into it. Time, moving on. The goal isn't to live forever, guys. The goal is to create something that will. Now, an example, guys, is if you're, say, 25, but your death date is 50, you're actually pretty old. But if you are 50 and your death date is, say, 100, you're actually pretty young, right? If you look at the difference. The problem is that we don't know when our last days is going to be, right? It's not about age nowadays. It's not about age, because we just don't know. So just kind of keep that in mind to, leaving those lasting legacies, having those conversations. Forgiveness, you guys, is so huge. Now I'm going to touch on this right now, because I know that one of the questions someone asked earlier, we're going to go into questions. In fact, we're going to go into questions right now. You guys, step 5, you can see the chapters, the worksheets. Step 6, just going through the workbook. We're going to go into questions. I'm just going to stop this right now. Sorry, Amazon is where my book is, guys. It's on Amazon. It's on sale until, I want to say, Wednesday. And that's where you can get the book. And options to complete the workbook. There's a workbook. There's a accountability coach. I'm going to stop this share because I just want to talk now about the grief part. And then we're going to answer all those other questions that we do have. I see Glenn. Glenn is one of our agents that I work with here in Calgary as well. One of the questions that we got earlier was how to handle grief. And I actually contacted one of the grief coach is what she calls herself, which I like that, because I think when we say the word counselor in our community, it's shunned upon. So a grief coach, and I say coach because, and I like that word because it's almost like, if even with our marriages, to have a coach, just like how when we were in school and we were playing basketball and volleyball, someone is teaching us step by step how to be better, right? The same thing with grief. And I asked her, when someone is, how does someone handle guilt? And she said to me that it depends on the kind of guilt that they're talking about. Is it a guilt that is, someone passed away and they were not there, or they didn't know something, like, say, a loved one who had a heart attack and you didn't know and something happened? There's a different way to handle that guilt than, say, for instance, I don't know, we have aging parents, we totally neglected them, and now we have regrets. She's pretty much was saying that we have to go through that. We have to forgive ourselves and just know that we're going to do better after. I was at a funeral, I want to say two weeks ago, and one of the biggest things that they were talking about was forgiveness. You guys, that is so huge. Forgiveness is so huge. We get into these little arguments with family, then we stop talking, and next thing you know, so-and-so passes away, and those of us who are left behind are the one that's living with this guilt. We're not saying that you have to be best friends with that family member, but just it's almost better for your own peace of mind to forgive them, you know, say that you love them, then you go your separate way instead of having this family breakdown. They're not talking. The last words that you told your family member was a pretty much where to go, how to get there, and, you know, best of luck and don't let the door hit you on your way out, kind of a thing, right? We just need to understand that forgiveness is just so huge, and it's gonna it makes a difference with our grief journey that we go on. And inside the book, it talks about grief, and I just believe that in our community, we need to more go through grief counseling more than anything else. And it's so huge because we were not taught how to grieve, so we don't know how to grieve. So when we're talking about now, the amount of funerals I'm going to for alcohol abuse, for drug abuse, for overdose with our young people, it is a different ball game. But anyhow, I just want to thank you guys all who were here. I know that we've gone over our time. Let's answer those questions, and an applaud to all those who's made it, who stayed here all of this time. Thank you so much. I know for those who do insurance, can you raise your hands? Can I just see who and who is here with insurance? I know that EJ is here in Alberta. She does insurance. Glenn does insurance. That's in Alberta. Who is out in Ontario or Montreal that's on here that does insurance?
It's
Glenn is
Wayne,
actually,
but Wayne, I shared Wayne's profile link in the chat for those who don't, who
okay,
might not have it.
perfect.
Do we have anybody who's here? Like, and actually, please, guys, feel free to share your contacts in the chat as well. It would be awesome to have you guys as a part of the community as well, but also seeing your hair, you're welcome to share.
Right. Now
Okay.
let's also answer all these questions, because you guys, you have done well. It's now, you know, 8:16 for some of us, 6:16 for others. We are not going to take up much more of your time. Let's go through the last few questions that we do have. Farrell, do you want to ask the questions that you saw?
Yeah. So, well, most people are, I don't, well, I have mine written down. If you guys have your questions, please put your hand up, and then we'll call on you for you to be able to answer the questions. And we're going to wrap in 13 minutes, guys. All right. So by 8:30, we'll be done. And again, I'm going to reiterate, please, if you're interested in this topic and you want to take part in another workshop, please send us an email, ofcwecare@gmail.com, ofcwecare@gmail.com. You send us a message, just let us know that you're interested. And also, I said it before, but I'll say it again. If you can, just put a quick something in the chat, just because we also keep track of our attendance. We want to know how many people are here. So please, if you can do that for us, would be greatly appreciated. My question is,
Farrell, another question I have is, do we have anybody in the community that is a will and estates lawyer? And do we have grief counselors or grief coaches within the community?
I know we do. We have 2 grief counselors within the community.
Okay.
We do have an estate lawyer. And one of my questions for you on that same topic was, what about notaries? We have notaries in our network that I have a notary. One of the notaries in the community does wills as well. So that was one of my questions. If a notary is just as good as an estate lawyer. So that was one question. I don't know if you want to answer that or
I need to get back to, can someone help me with this? Isn't a notary just pretty much someone who can sign off a legal document? Is that wrong?
Well, she could create it too. She could create the will and notarize it.
So is she going to the courthouse to argue for those families? Does she go to the courthouse?
That is a good question. She was on the call, but I think she just left not too long ago. So, but that's okay. So
Can
you're not too sure. Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry.
Typically, notaries do paperwork that needs to be witnessed and notarized. That can be, if you have good will instructions that are clear, then they probably able to help you with that. If you have any complications, spend the money, go to a lawyer, because your beneficiary going to spend way more after to get things ironed out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you for that. Okay, so I'll ask my quick question, and Tashana, I see your hand. Mine was from the beginning when we said we need to have the tough conversations with loved ones. And I know it's in the book, but I want to give the people a nugget, and just for myself to just so we could talk about it. But how do we engage that conversation? How do we bring up that conversation with the loved ones?
Such a good question, but you know what, guys? It starts with us. So it starts with us saying, do you know what, Mom and Dad, if something happens to me tomorrow, go inside my room underneath the bed. You're going to find XYZ. And that's going to make them think like, wait 1 second, you have your stuff together and I don't. And they want to be a part of it. And that's how we've been able to work with adult children with aging parents, is that it starts with the adult children to say to their parents XYZ. And that's what has been opening up those conversations.
I love that. Thank you for that. Tashana, I have another question, but I'll let other girl ask.
Good evening, everybody. I wanted to know, Andrea, there's a lot of people nowadays who are focused on giving back to the environment in certain ways. And so I know there's a couple of solutions for that in afterlife with like tree pods and different types of things. Do you work with those new services as well? Or is it just mostly traditional cremation and burial?
In Alberta, like I know that there's like, and it's all inside the book, you guys, as the different options, but it depends where you are as to which funeral home actually does those services. So although we're hearing about water, you guys don't remember the names, it's all inside the book. Got to do the research in your area because not everywhere has that. Like I know that for in Edmonton they have a green burial, which is pretty much that instead of doing it's a certain kind of a casket, right? It's a natural casket, and then they do not do embalming. It's no embalming, and then that goes inside the ground. So it's not as like these water. There's two different ones that's in the book. I haven't read through my book for a long time, so I don't remember all that's in there. But if you want to go natural and if you want to know more about that, you guys, every province is different. Every city is almost different. No, let's just say province. Every province is different. Do your research in advance. But Tashana, that is a great question.
Thank you for that, Tashana, because that was on my mind. But so my other question, you had mentioned at the beginning, you said there's a community. I think you said the Baja community that there. Can you just spell that when you say Baha'i? Because I'm very interested in that.
Baha'i, I want to say it's Bahai, and it's a religion. It's actually a religion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So they start educating their young people from the age of 16 and having those legal documents in place. So at the age of 16, they already have the young people with their wills.
Beautiful. Cool. Those are my questions. And Tashana actually asked my other question I had because I'm a person, I'm interested in this pod thing. I was talking to my family about it for myself. I don't want to be reincarnated as a tree, but I do want to be in that pod thing. I think that'd be really cool. So it's got to make sure it doesn't happen that I come back as that tree. But anyways, I'll digress on that. Okay, so good. Thank you guys. So guys, we have a couple of minutes left. So if you guys have any questions, now would be the time. Yes,
Arlene, go ahead. Hi, Arlene.
Hello. I didn't know I was on.
Oh.
Did you have something to say? Because you unmiked or mic'd.
Oh, no, I don't. Sorry.
Okay. You're good. You're good.
Awesome. Okay.
Anybody else?
Wow.
Yeah, I just think I want to thank you for this kind of topic. I know it's kind of something that difficult to have the conversation due to where we are coming from. I want to applaud you doing this one. And today it's a kind of eye opener for me. Even to start thinking there's nothing that is permanent. Things can happen just suddenly. Then you have to put something in place, not because of you, but mostly because of your loved one. You don't want them to be in a situation that they will need to use their card or got into debt because of the choice you didn't make. And I think one of the big impact is thinking do I want to be buried in Canada or do I want to be flown back home? It's a kind of things that I'm starting thinking about, what is the best for them according to the resources I have now. So I just want to say thank you to you.
No worries. Thank you so much.
May I chime in too? Guys, we have this thing where we can have moments like this where we think we should do this and then life gets in the way. We go about our business and then stuff happens and then we try to call Andrea after. Do yourselves, do your families a favor, call her, get this taken care of. It's just going to save you headaches down the road. Not just cost-wise, but a matter of what to do. Because invariably you'll have one person going, well, I want this from mom. Is like, no, 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 she would have wanted this. You have arguments that rip families apart when there's not clear instructions. So do yourselves a favor, call her, get the stuff set up. It'll be way easier, less cost, and way better peace of mind for the relationships that survive the passing. Thanks.
Thank you for that. There's two. Oh, yeah, go ahead, sister.
Sorry. I actually do have a question. A little bit of advice. I think Andrea knows about this. Well, I lost my spouse a couple years ago. Not that he didn't have insurance. So one of the things I want to tell people, if you get insurance while your loved ones are sick, perhaps they don't have that insurance doesn't reach a maturity date then, for lack of a better word. Maybe the person who's in insurance knows the word better, and then you're left without no insurance. So you have to make sure that's in place. And then my next question was to I think that person that just spoke, he is an insurer. If you have a trustee, do you still need to have a will with directions?
Good question.
Sorry, was that for me?
Yeah, you can answer it.
I'm going to say this. I'll give you my example. I've got multiple beneficiaries, a couple of different trustees, depending on who's getting what, and if the kids are young. And I still have a will, because one has to do with insurance that I mostly steer away from my estate. I will have some of my insurance going to my estate because for my situation, it makes sense. But most of it will go directly to my beneficiaries. Those who are underage, there's trustees for those. That's a separate thing. But for anything that will be left over that's not addressed, it forms part of your estate, good or bad. And in order to deal with that, it is better to have somebody who you've talked to. Don't just spring it on them and put their name there, because it is work. It's better to have somebody that you've talked to who accepts the responsibility, who will do this. And then, yes, I would say always have a will. I don't play around with that, because I've seen too many situations where things can just go crazy when you don't have it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Somebody had asked in the chat about setting up like a family trust, I think, and stuff like that. Again, that's a whole other topic, so I'm not too sure. But is that something that we could do in Canada? Is that something more in the States? Because I do hear a lot of talk about it, but I don't know anybody person who has set up a trust in Canada.
So for those who know my book, you're gonna do that also through your accountant. Is that correct, Glenn? Like your accountant answers all of those questions?
No, you'd need a lawyer for a trust, but not everyone needs a trust. We have a little bit different details than the US does. It depends on your situation. It all depends. But again, talk to your professionals, talk to your lawyers to see if your situation warrants it. Yeah, talk to your professionals at the end of the day.
And maybe if we do have a second one, then I'll bring some of the other professionals on with us as well so we can have that type of conversation. And so as I see we have 2 minutes, I do want to encourage us, those who are in business and who are a part of this call, please use the opportunity to network, share your contacts, reach out to people here, because all of us in business, any kind of opportunity to introduce ourselves. Clearly we're like-minded individuals because we all are here and we're sharing we see that this is an important topic. So please use the opportunity to network and to connect with each other. Andrea, I could leave you if you want to say a couple of words, and then I'll close this up.
I just wanted to read this one post that I saw this week, and it's just gonna get us thinking here. This person posted just this week that said, dying doesn't scare me. Leaving these kids while they still need me does. Like, that hit me. I don't even have children, right? So, for those of us who are on this call, we do so many different workshops. We all have this we're going to do. I'm just asking you guys, put a date, put something in your calendar as to when you want to start getting things done. We went through the 6 steps. For those who have a book, if you want to go through that book, and even if you say, do you know what, by this date, I want to get step 1 and 2 done, but we need to be intentional to have this plan in place, because as we mentioned throughout this conversation, and when we listened to the 3 ladies who spoke, and as we all know that they were all talking about 2 of them, 3 of them talked about, now that I think about it, 3 females spoke on their husbands leading. I remember I mentioned earlier who goes first, right? you know, it's important that we just have these conversations and we have these plans in place, because if once crisis comes, you guys, when I tell you it's too late, it's too late.
Mm. Well said, Queen. Thank you so much for that. I shared the profile, one of your OFC profile within the chat, and obviously everybody knows where they can find you as well. I strongly encourage you guys, if you can, one, either check out Andrew on the profile here or search her online and give a review, follow, like, share. You guys know in this age that we're in, these kind of things have a huge value. So if you could share, let other people know about the great work that she's doing. That is what we're here for as a community, to continue to build. And if there's anybody who's interested in more info about the OFC, or you'd like to find out more about the community, it'd be our pleasure to connect with you. We're very values based, so that'd be the first thing. If you are interested, we'd send you out our values. You could read them. If you're aligned with them, we'd love to connect with you. So with that, guys, I wish you guys an amazing Sunday. As usual, I am grateful to life and grateful to God, our creator, as well as our ancestors, for being present and for creating this opportunity for us to be able to get together and to build with each other. And I just ask that the Spirit just continue to bless each and every one of you guys, keep you guys in great health and great peace, and peace and blessings. Good night, everybody. See you guys soon.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all very much. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Hi, Glenn.
Thanks. Hi. Oh, hey,
How are you?
Sean.